I can only guess that you are just like me, and at times you wonder, what is going on here anyway? I mean, this is the heart of inquiry, isn't it? If I can, for a moment, shift my point of perception, and even if that's not truly possible, like I can't get out of my own perspective, not really, really, really. But if I can shift my inquiry point and include a perspective that I hadn't yet considered, that opens up some truly adventurous thinking, doesn't it? I'm Anne Headley. It's a new blue moon here in mid August, and it's time to consider once again what is going on anyway. This is my podcast where I take a look at the new moon cycle and the full moon cycle and give you a reflection on these 2 weeks. When I want to think about shifting my perspective, I often go back to my divorce with that sort of inquiry. I spent a lot of time working through the issues around divorce and how I was so invested in my point of view. So I can consider the whole ordeal a big failure, or other days an apt conclusion, or even a full completion. But what I can know for sure, what we all can know for sure, is that there are many perspectives. There's one partner's perspective, the other partner's perspective, and then there's everyone in their lives. They have their own take on it. And of course, the children see this event from their own perspectives. So there's a lot of different ways of thinking about this. With a divorce, sometimes it can be really helpful to consider the other person's perspective and to use it as a way to gain understanding. Of course, not just with a divorce, but the divorce is representing like a disagreement where there are strong stances on either side. So that is like the sort of ultimate disagreement, right? So we can use the other person's perspective as a way to gain understanding and perspective. Not so much for that compassionate understanding of the other, but more for that inquiry point to arise within. When I did the work with Byron Katie, I learned how to take my judgments and use them to become more intimate with my own inner thoughts and feelings. And it helped me keep a distance. Those inner thoughts and feelings, up until then, I was keeping a distance from them by putting those thoughts and feelings and judgments on the folks I was judging. You know, I can't know if my ex was a jerk because I don't know what was happening in his thinking. But I can take that judgment and consider whether I was being a jerk because I do know what I'm thinking and feeling. And all I'm pointing to here is that there are many ways of becoming a more flexible thinker and becoming a more adept judger. And I know that seems negative to encourage judgment, but in this case, if we can use it wisely, it really brings insight and really, actually, it's a whole lot more fun. There's a lot of humor to many situations that are just so serious, and I'm always a proponent of more fun. My current conundrum has to do with art versus my money making. And all of those stories I have around money making. Some of those stories are about how making money has to be really hard, and that if I made a lot of money, I would become somehow a different person. So up to now, I've been able to sustain a combination. My current conundrum has to do with art versus money making. And all of these stories I have around money making. Some of those stories are about how making money has to be really hard. And if I made a lot of money, I would somehow become a completely different and probably evil person. Up to now, I've not been able to sustain a combination of those two elements of art and making a living. It was always one or the other. And I'm at a place in my life where I'm no longer content with the long-suffering, poor artist model of being an artist in the world. I'm a middle-aged mother of children that need me less and less. And so I'm reconsidering myself and how I identify as a artist and breadwinner. Why do I have to win bread? I can make bread. I make all my bread. I don't make all my bread. Why would I even say that? Why would I even say that? I can make bread, but I buy a lot of bread. Okay, let's just move on from here, okay? Lots of us are doing this reinventing of ourselves right now. It's not just empty nesters. I'm confronted by how to recreate myself in some ways. I think all of us have been confronted by this. We're looking at a world from a post-pandemic perspective and how to reinsert ourselves into the world. Maybe this is old news. It doesn't feel like old news to me. Remember when the pandemic first happened and there were entrepreneurs left and right talking about pivoting? It was like a buzzword, pivoting. And it was like this frantic panic to pivot and make it all work. And everything suddenly was available on Zoom. And it was sort of like, quick, everything will be fine. We've got this. And I feel like I'm still in this moment of recollecting something from that time. It's something about the way I understood the world, the way I thought of the world, something about that just ended with the pandemic. The way I thought we would care for each other if things really got bad, the way I thought the government would care for its citizens. There was this big letdown, like the curtains dropped. And we're all here just trying to make sense of everything on our own, the best way we know how, gathering information from the outside and from inside of ourselves, and making decisions that really I felt ill-equipped to make, and I felt like my neighbors felt ill-equipped to make. And right now, I'm trying to sort out how to live the life that I want in the world that we've got, while also trying, like I talked about last time, to do good work that I'm proud of. I've never really been able to combine these two elements of art making and money making. In my mind, it's sort of one or the other. And I'm at a place where I'm not content anymore to be either the long-suffering artist or the hobbyist who never really takes it seriously. For a long time, my main focus was just being a mother to my children, and I always hoped that art would make its way back to the forefront in my life. But I never really put it in front, not in those years. So now I want to think about this differently. So I'm asking, how can I think about this differently? How can I reframe this crossroads that I'm finding myself in? Sometimes it's just about me accepting work that gives me more time, where I have a better money versus time value equation. Like, I can take work that isn't necessarily my heart's work, and I can earn a larger chunk of money so I can afford more time with my art. That doesn't solve my problem. I'm just saying that's sometimes what I do. I seem to require a lot of puttering time in my life. I wander around my home and garden, and I just think a lot. Is everyone like this? Wouldn't everyone just like to putter about if they could most of the time? So we've got this new moon coming up, and this new moon is always a time of renewing convictions. Like for me, I'm here asking, wishing, and wanting for more opportunities to provide income for myself and my family while pursuing my creative problem solving, my art making, dance, healing work, and of course, this also includes my love of animals. I'm often really confused by what is practical about what I want. I mean, the voice inside me says, everyone wants what they want, but you also have to be an adult and do things you don't want to do. That one comes up a lot, like somebody's got to be the adult. Somebody's got to do what they don't want to do. And that was one of the disagreements that I found in my marriage. Like we had this, I wouldn't call it a game. We had this struggle over who suffered more somehow. It's just a zero-sum game. Nobody can win that. I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because what part of me ever thought that would get anybody anywhere? So that's, and that's an internal struggle of like, I'm talking to myself and saying, somebody's got to be the adult here. Okay. It's just a bunch of kids in here. There's not adults. I don't know. Okay, let me just tell you, the reason this is making me laugh so hard is because it's like almost midnight and I have really honestly been trying all day to get this podcast out. But there's just sort of like one thing or the other. It's a really crazy day. This is the new moon in Leo day. And I really don't know what's going on, but nothing really is going the way I thought it would go. And I was texting with a friend of mine and she said she's been going like 100 miles an hour all day and hasn't gotten anywhere. Sort of that like Fred Flintstone car. And we're all just like pedaling our feet and nothing's happening. That's what today has felt like. So I'm just feeling a little silly here at the end, hoping that this recording will work. So where's the adult? I don't know. Honestly, right now, I don't even really care. But I know that othering voice that comes up in me that wants to point fingers and blame and shame and like follow the rules and such, I have something to say to her. And what I would say to her is that I would say to her what I would say to a good friend. How would I advise you? That's easy. I would say creativity comes first, because creativity is the engine of a spiritual life. You attend to the second chakra and let this lead you like a great teacher. That's the essence of spiritual life, after all. And isn't that what we're here for? Maybe I got the memo all wrong, but that's what I thought I was here for. But when I'm alone with myself, that's when I get these huge waves of doubt. Who do I think I am anyway? How do I expect to take care of myself and my children if I'm always spending half of my time and potential earning hours in creative pursuits? It's like there's a huge channel inside me between my abundant creativity, where everything is magical and golden. And I really feel that. And then there's this channel. It's not like a river. It's like a concrete, man-made channel inside of me. And the other side of that channel is how you make money. And usually that's in service to others at great cost to oneself. Like at least you're going to be exhausted physically, if not mentally and emotionally and all the other stuff. And that's just the story. That story is stuck in there. I can see it. I'd like to change it, but I don't seem to be able to change it at the moment. It's like my doubter says, why would I think I'm specialer than the average divorced mom of 3 who has to take on full-time outside the home work to support her family? And I would say to that someone else that lives inside of me that she's here in this one life to do things her way. That having a life informed by creativity and intuition is what she's here for. And that what she feels deep inside is true. That everything is going to work out if she stays with herself. I would remind her that above all, she must not betray her own self. And that really she knows if she doesn't keep going down this path toward her own precious and desired life, there's no one that can save her from that sad fate of living out someone else's dreams. And also really, whose dream is it that humans, incredible, creative beings, would only work for money to pay bills? It just doesn't make sense to me. I've been talking about this a lot, how important it is to me to follow my intuition. Probably every single podcast I talk about this. And lots of people agree with that. They'll say, you'll hear this, go with your gut. And what that really comes down to in my life is pursuing a creative life, which means also following the paths that are interesting to me. They light up in front of me. Stop here, call that person, research that question. It's sort of like I'm in an enormous, nonstop scavenger hunt. Everything is included. My only real problem in this scavenger hunt is all of that cluttersome doubt. One thing this new moon in Leo seems to be asking of us is to consider ourselves and our questions, all of those self-reflective questions that naturally arise in us, to consider them differently. How can we ask, what is going on anyway, with the frame of our own unique brilliance? And brilliance in the sense of that particular way we shine. How can I ask the question which for me right now centers around right livelihood? How can I center it around not only what I'm capable of doing? How can I center it around not only what I'm capable of doing, but what makes me really shine when I'm doing it? And how can I imagine a world that includes my particular form of shininess? So, as you know, I really love being engaged with art and creativity, and for me to take on work that it doesn't, and for me to take on work that doesn't include that in some way isn't really the direction I'd like to go. And I think that right now we all have the opportunity to choose our gifts, and choose our gifts like to honor our gifts and sort of let them shine, take up space, and see how that affects the world. You know, it's not that we're choosing our gifts, but that we uphold and respect the gifts that arise in our unique expression, and let them take up space and see how, if I hold my shininess with respect, how would that affect the world? What kinds of relationships are formed by letting there be space for our unique talents to be expressed and appreciated? I guess I'm asking the question, not what do we think we're good at because of how other people have told us about what we're good at, but how do we know about our brilliance? Because it harmonizes with something deep inside us that feels undeniable. How does that internal validation nurture the seed of something that we don't yet know the fruits of? We've reached that point in summer where the end is near. The sun is setting earlier. The flowers are going to seed. Squashes ripening. The tomatoes are turning red. The peppers are starting to turn red, we can't help but think several weeks into the future and what the fall will bring. How many swims are left? Did we appreciate summer enough? Maybe there's that one last urge to enjoy the heat, the humidity, the warm ground under our bare feet. And so I ask for me and for you, what does this new moon time have for us? What wisdom can we hold as the 2 weeks mid-August give us time to consider a season in change? So, dear Oracle, dear knower of the unknown, what would you have us know? And the hexagram that we get is 15. It has the changing line 2 and 3, and it moves to 7. 7 is the army. And the last time we got the army was July 2nd of this year, when we got Grace and Beauty, 22, moving to 7. And I think about the army. Of course, I can't think about the United States Armed Forces. That's not working for me as a symbol. But what I think about is, who are the people that come together, not just the people, the forces. What are the forces that come together in a unified front? And so for me, it is the group of people who share my points of inquiry. And there's an educator, Vanessa Andricotti, and she calls this an affinity of inquiry. And that is so poetic to me. Just this idea of who are the people who have an affinity of inquiry with you? And perhaps those are the people, and not just the people, the beings, the natural places that have an affinity of inquiry. And that's the way that we think about forming our, let's just call it a spiritual army. No, I don't even think I can do that. There are better words for me. And it would be the collective force. What's the collective force? What are you part of that you believe in? And then there's other people, other beings, other energies that are part of that collective force. So that, that could be environmentalists are on that same, have that same collective force. But back to modesty. This is the hexagram that we're given to contemplate. The creative acts to empty what is full and to offer abundance to what is modest. But what does modesty mean? Certainly, it entails a refusal to boast or act imperiously in a domineering way with others, even in small ways. But beyond this steadfast humility, it also means that our effort to discern what is right and then do it is constant. We do not work against ourselves, and we do not indulge in doubts about the wisdom of correct conduct. So there is here with this hexagram a component of non-action that is not indulging in arrogant, ego-centered behavior, as well as a component of active effort, looking for opportunities to correct ourselves, to assist justice where there is injustice, to feed where there is hunger, and to give solace where there is pain. Finally, and most plainly, modesty means holding to innocence, sincerity, and openness in every situation. The questions to hold here are these. What is the simple reality? How might you return to a state of balance? What if it didn't all depend on you? Modesty is also moderation. The predominant forces in the cosmos at this time are in the process of balancing extremes and harmonizing interests. This tendency toward equilibrium and moderation is a natural urge in the universe. In the terrain of the earth, pinnacles are in the process of wearing down and valleys are filling up. Extreme poles magnetize and attract their opposites, thus neutralizing and moderating themselves. Nature balances itself with plagues, droughts, and cycles of overabundance, and human nature strives toward moderation in its tendency to reduce the excesses of the overpowerful and to augment the needs of those who are desperately wanting. This is a good time to bring some equilibrium to your more personal relationships. Examine your deepest feelings and see if you're harboring any extremes in your expectations or selfish desires in your motivations. Try to moderate any unrealistic ideals. 15 in another one of my books is called The Humbling. As a stance in the world, this humbling cuts through the pride and complication of an overdeveloped ego. It breeds an agile, extremely effective personal power connected with the ideal of the realizing person. This quality is considered to be the handle of the power and virtue that allows you to become an effective person. The souls and spirits extend blessing through it, and the people love it. Heaven augments it, and earth diffuses it. In the middle of the earth, there is a mountain. This will release you from constraint and bring creative balance. Don't go to extremes. Be agile and alert. Humbling gives you a handle on the power to realize who you are meant to be. It dignifies and clarifies things, cutting away formality by keeping rules simple and clear. Reduce the many to augment the few. Carefully appraise the value of things to equalize the flow of energy. This is a time of connection between the spirit powers. Heaven moves below to bring brightness and clarity. Earth's modesty moves in the above. Heaven's way is to lessen what is overfull and augment what is humble. Earth's way is to transform what is overfull and spread what is humble. Humbling brings dignity and makes things shine. Isn't that nice that that word is in there, since I was using shininess before? It is modest and does not try to go beyond what is there. Through it, you can accomplish and complete things. And it moves to 7, which I've talked about is the army or the collective force. The questions to ask: what are you aiming for? How can you get more from your strengths? And with all your efforts, are you creating the life that you want? And I chose this poem to read, not really knowing exactly why, but I realized this is about modesty and humility and humbling. So here it is. I found this document in my shared folder because I was in there rummaging for another file I share with my brother. And I found this one that was shared with me by you. And it spoke of colors and past lives and wounds. And all of a sudden I felt sick, nauseated like I might pass out. I'm home alone, and it scares me to think of passing out with no one but the dog to witness. So I dropped to all fours, laid down, and rocked my pelvis, gathering breath. I had fevered with flu 48 hours ago and still felt weak. Turned over to crawl, found a plastic pull ring from my oat milk carton on the floor. But I thought it was a ring, and I put it on my finger, like I'm married again. Anything to feel safe. And I crawled to the kitchen, spooned out peanut butter, and grabbed an old banana, peeled it, and stuffed it in my sticky mouth. Sat there with the dusty, crumbed floor until my stomach made sense of things. Then stood, watched the mail carrier arrive. When I felt strong again, I texted you. What was this mysterious document? Must know more. You had no idea what I was referring to. I finally learned it was another with the same name. And I had forgotten because she's disappeared from my life a long while back. It's these mysteries that show me who I am when it all falls down. I'm still the one who searches for comfort in promises and hope and seeks the earth to soothe me. Maybe you wouldn't know this but from listening, and of course maybe you might, but I've had a heck of a time with this particular podcast episode. It was like a segment got uploaded and then it disappeared and then I couldn't edit it, and it was just sort of like all of it wanting me to give up. So I pulled these cards, and this is what I got, because I always like to pull the cards when I'm in a bit of a mess in my mind. And these are the Soul Oracle cards. I've definitely used these before. Again, it's Sonia Choquette. And I got Be Creative, Take the Lead, and All Things in Moderation, which I thought was genius because our hexagram this time is modesty, humility. And that includes moderation. That the humility is the noun and moderation is the verb of this hexagram. And so there we have it. That is, there's always more that I can attend to or talk about, but in order to allow this to take up the space that it needs in the right time, I leave you with what's here: modesty, humility, balance, letting go of a season as it changes. And with that, we've come to the end of our new moon in August. Join me next time for the full moon. We'll see what's in store for us, how the weather changes, what feels different, what's been going on. As always, I appreciate your comments and your feedback. I appreciate your support. You can easily support me at Patreon. That's patreon.com/watermoonstudios. Thanks for being here. Until next time, bye for now.